So by this point, hopefully you've done the videos about the introduction, about passages in Twine, and you've checked out the video on how to use CSS to make your Twine game look really nice. So this one is about adding media to your Twine game, which is important, like adding images and music. This can really distinguish a good from a bad Twine game, an engaging one from just a run-of-the-mill. Probably text is the most important thing in Twine usually, but images and music can really help create atmosphere. So it should kind of like intuitively, it seems like it should be easy to add images to a Twine game. Like you almost expect in Twine there to be some button somewhere, or like you can just like drag an image into your game and it's going to work. But that's not the way it is. It's kind of hard to add images to Twine games. Again, for me, this is kind of a bonus because you need to learn some HTML in order to add images. But it's also a little frustrating. But follow along and I'll give you what I think is the easiest way to learn this stuff. First of all, this is another reminder, all the code that's relevant to all these videos is going to be at adamhammond.com/Twine guide. And also super relevant right now is that I have made a series of videos pretty recently that's a beginner's guide to HTML and CSS. And this stuff is really relevant to what I'm about to say right now. In particular, what is HTML? We'll give you an intro to like what an image tag is in HTML, but especially the making a multi-page website video really explains the crucial concepts that I'm going to outline in this video. So you probably will want to check those out. Probably like watch this video, get confused, watch the making a multi-page website video, then it'll start to make sense, and then watch this one again, and you should be basically there. So there is a kind of easy way to add images into a game, and it's not the end of the world. So let's say in this hallway game that we've been working on for the last several videos, the first passage, you're in a big room with two doors. Let's say you wanted to add, the easiest way to add an image into that game. It would be to do something like this. Google like room with two doors and restrict it to images. And amusingly enough, the first hit for this search is the very room in the Stanley Parable that I'm basing my game on. So okay, you do a Google image search, you find an image you like, you click, this is key, you click on this view image button and it's going to give you the URL. This is the web address where this image actually lives. So because you can just stick any old HTML tag into a Twine game, because all a Twine game is HTML basically, you can put this image right into your game very easily. The image tag for HTML is, you do that pointy bracket, img src equals, and then the URL. I just copied that out of the browser window, and now I'm going to paste it in and terminate it. So now if I close that and hit play, I would actually see, there it is, that image off of the web. It's like too big and badly positioned, but it's there, it sort of works. So yeah, you could now stick images using this simple setup, this image tag plus URL. You could add images to every passage of your game and it would work for now. Because these are not your own images, they're just somewhere on the web. There's a whole bunch of downsides. Maybe you don't own them. Maybe since you're just limited to Google searching, you're not going to find an image that's like the exact image you want for your game. Most importantly, you make an awesome game with all these links out to external websites. What if they suddenly take the image down? Then you don't control it, right? So suddenly that image of a hallway is gone in my game, which everyone loves to play, suddenly doesn't make any sense. I got all these broken image links. So really what you want to do is you want to control all the images and you want to have them in a place that you can control and you know exactly where they are and they're on like your own computer or your own server. Okay, so this is actually unfortunately where it gets kind of complicated. Okay, the key to this now is once you want to start adding images and music to your game, you can't think of your Twine game as just one file anymore. Like to this point, you make your game, you do publish to file. We've been sticking it in documents and just say calling it hallway game. So I save it and I go to my computer and there it is, that's my whole game. Well, now that you're going to add music and images, or just music, you can't think of it as an isolated single file anymore. You need to think of it as a whole folder, a folder that includes the HTML file as well as all of the quote-unquote media assets that are related to your game. Images, music, maybe even video, all that kind of stuff. So because we're not going to think of it just as one file anymore, we need to house the game in a folder. So I'm on a Mac. I'm going to make a new folder in my documents, and I'm going to call it like hallway game. I normally don't like using capitals or spaces for the names of anything, but just for fun, or to keep things really simple, I'm gonna give it nice descriptive names. So now, okay, I'm gonna put my game into this folder, and I'm also going to put images and music into this folder. In fact, I'm gonna make little subfolders in here. One called images, and then I make another subfolder called music. It's just to keep things organized. You don't need to do this. It would make your life a little simpler in some ways if you just squished everything together, but I'm an organized person and I like to keep things nicely separated into folders. So this is how your Twine games are going to look if you're using media assets, okay? It has its own folder on your computer, whether you're on a Mac or Windows or Linux or whatever. Give it its own folder. Then the main game file is going to be the HTML file, and then you're going to have subfolders called, say, images and music. You don't need to have subfolders, but if you follow my example, just have subfolders. Now over here, I've got all of the media assets that I want to use. So I just have one image, and as you can see, this is a beautiful image that I drew of a hallway and two doors. Complete creative control, right? I made this myself. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to stick it into my images folder. So now, okay, I've got my main game, I've got an images subfolder, and I've got an image in it called hallway.jpg. So let's say I want to insert that image, not this other person's image, but that image into my own game. Okay, I'm still going to use the HTML tag for an image, which starts img_src equals. But now instead of giving it a path out there to the real web HTTP path, I'm going to give it what's called a relative path. So the published version of my game, remember, is going to live in this hallway game folder, and this is going to be where the main published version of my game is. So all I need to do is say, how do you get from the main file to the image file? I'm not giving a URL like a HTTP web address. I'm just giving what is called a relative path. How do I get from the HTML file to the image? The way that you say, okay, you're here, look for a folder called images, and then look for a file called hallway.jpg. This is how you say it. Images/hallway.jpg. That's an HTML relative link. If you want to know more about relative links, go here. Go to my HTML guide and watch this video. So this is the correct thing that I need to do. Okay, in Twine, I give a relative path and I say, in my folder structure, look for a subfolder called images and look for a file called hallway.jpg. The whole thing is about how do I get from here to here, and that is the correct answer. However, right now I'm in my downloaded version of Twine. I hit play. The image does not display. It's a little error message. That's because when you're looking at this preview, okay, you're in Twine and you hit play, think of this purely as a preview. And although it is saved somewhere on your hard drive, it doesn't really, you don't know where it is. So you could find it, but for the sake of argument, let's say you don't really know where it is. Relative paths are all about how do I get from one location to another. But here we're in a kind of another world. It's hard to say exactly where we are. The way that you actually give your game a concrete existence is by publishing the file, as we've already seen. Okay, this is how you take it out of the netherworld and put it in a place that you know and understand. So if we can save it in this folder we made in its home, okay, this is the game's home, and we save it in there, we overwrite the old version of hallway game. Now we have, this is like publishing, okay? Think of this whole world as a preview, And then once you're ready to actually see what it looks like, put it out there into the world, give it a concrete existence, publish the file is the way to do it. So now I go to my documents, hallway game. This is the thing that I just published. Now if I double click on this, it'll open up in any browser and it will work. That relative path is now working. If you go up here, you can see, yeah, okay, it's in my documents, hallway game. It all makes sense. It has a real physical, concrete path existence. Relative paths, okay? Like again, I said, you might want to check out this making a multi-page website video to really nail down that sense. But the key idea is when you're making links, you need to think into the structure that you have created. Like you have to think in terms of, okay, once I'm done previewing it in Twine, where is this going to actually end up? It's going to end up there. And to get from that HTML page to that image, the relative path is images/hallway.jpg. So that's how you do it. You get all the images you want, stick them in that images subfolder, and then make a bunch of links that look like this. You should be adding alt tags which describe the image for people who are vision impaired. But I've just done it like this for convenience. You can also specify things like height and width to resize it, but that's all covered in my HTML series. But that's how you add images to your game. They're really, like, seriously, there's no easier way. That is the way you do it. The nice thing about sticking your whole game into a folder is that if you wanted to upload this onto a web server, and again, in this video at the end, I tell you how you might stick a folder onto a web server, and the same exact stuff applies. So if you've got a web server, you just would upload this folder you've made and it would totally work on the web just as well as it worked on your own hard drive, because relative paths work on your hard drive and also when they're online. You could also, if you wanted to, say, send this whole folder game to a friend, you could, on a Mac, you just option click and say compress, and it makes a zip file right there that you could then email, and it would work, including all the images and music and stuff. Okay, so that's how you add an image. It's, like I said, not super easy, but that's the way to do it. And once you've wrapped your head around this idea of making a folder structure and giving it a real concrete existence outside of Twine, and really thinking of Twine's play button as a preview, not as the real deal, then you should be able to do really well with it. All right, the next thing that I want to do is I want to tell you how to add music. So HTML tags work, and there are HTML tags for putting music in, but there are nice built-in things in Twine's SugarCube story format that are really better. They're wonderful for working with music in Twine. Just a reminder that everything I'm telling you works in SugarCube 2, and you need to be in SugarCube 2 for this to work. Before I go any further, I'm going to say it seems like there are a few bugs in SugarCube 2.14, the one that comes in Twine 2.1, and not all the things that I've normally done in previous videos work. I expect in the next few months these bugs will be resolved, so I'm just going to pretend that they don't exist, but you'll get the general concept. Okay, so with music, you need to have music files to add music into your game. I've got two music files here. They're both songs that I made in bands that I was in, so I own the copyright. I don't need to feel weird about it. If you need to get music off of the web or something, there are ways of, like, say, converting YouTube files into MP3s. It's totally not legal though, so you need to be very careful about copyright. If it's just on your own computer and for your own amusement, don't get worried about copyright though, because you're not actually publishing it. So I've got these two files, music files. One of them is sort of like a regular song. Okay, so there's that one. That's actually going to be my happy song. I'm going to use it only in a happy passage, and then this is going to be like the default song. A little bit more ominous. So, okay, I'm going to take these two files and drag them into the music subfolder that I made. So now this is my game folder. My game folder contains the main game file and then all media assets, which I have nicely organized into images and music. So images, we've already played with that. Music, 2 files, dauphin.mp3 and henry.mp3. Okay, here's how you deal with music in Twine, and again, these instructions relate to SugarCube 2. They won't work with other story formats. You need to be in SugarCube 2. First, you create a special passage. This passage isn't going to be literally linked to anything in your game. It's not like a passage for users to visit. It's a special passage. It's called story init. It needs to be named that exactly. And it's a place for you to initialize all kinds of things in your game. What we're going to do here is we're going to load songs. Just imagine this like a load screen in a video game where it's like, okay, progress 10%. This is a similar thing. We're going to load all of our audio assets into the game. We're going to load up those MP3s. So here's how the SugarCube audio macros, as they're known, work. There's a macro called cache audio. You do these 2 pointy brackets. That's how you know you're working with a SugarCube macro. Cache audio. You give like a code name to your song. You have to come up with this, but it can be anything. I'm calling it main song for the main song that's going to play in my game, and you need to surround it with quotation marks. Then more quotation marks, and you give the relative path to where that sound file is. So again, it's relative to where my game is actually going to be published once I've published it to file. So from the published file to the sound is music subfolder dauphin.mp3. That's the relative path. I'm going to also load up another song, cache audio. Cache just means like load, put it in memory. I'm going to call this one happy song. Again, I picked that name. That's just like a little code that I'm creating to refer to this song, and then the relative path to the actual file is music henry.mp3. Again, there it is. I've spelt it right, music, then henry.mp3. Okay, close. So Twine knows when it loads a game, when your browser actually loads it to play it, the very first thing it will do is it will carry out all the instructions in story init. In this case, it's going to load up these 2 MP3 files. Now to actually play them, you use another audio macro. So I'm just going to insert it, say, right here. So audio macro, 2 pointy brackets, audio, and here, okay, so this is an audio macro, audio command. Then I give the code name of the song I want to play, which is main song. I created that, I came up with that. And the command, which is play. That will take that file and start playing it from the beginning. By the way, if I hit play here, nothing's going to work because I'm in that netherworld. This is just a preview. I'm not going to hear it until I publish it into my folder where it actually lives. So actually, why don't we go ahead and do that now? Publish the file. I'm going to stick it there. It's helpfully trying to say, hey, don't overwrite your old one. Give it a new name, but I don't care. I'm just going to overwrite and replace my previous version. So I go to Documents, Hallway Game, the folder where my game lives. I double click on Hallway Game, opens in a browser. So that was great. I got the actual image that I wanted and the music played. Okay, so let's have it do a thing now where, okay, how about it plays throughout the whole game, regardless of which path you take, but only in this pointless at this point UFOs passage. In here, I want it to stop playing the main song and play the happy song. So here I'm going to do, okay, 2 pointy brackets, audio, main song, stop. And then audio main, sorry, not main song, but happy song. I created that name earlier in story init when I loaded it. Play. In my examples on my website, the code says fade out and fade in, which can kind of be nicer, but this is one of those bugs I was talking about. For reasons I don't fully understand, those aren't working as of March 25th, 2017 at 2:52 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I think they will start working soon, but for this example, I'm just going to do stop and play. So, okay, I've got those in. So the deal is that it's going to play that one song. It's going to keep on playing it through all these steps, but if the player gets here, it will stop the main song and it will play the happy song. Remember, those names come from, I called the one file main song and I called the other file happy song, and I gave those names, but I had to slavishly follow the actual name of files in folders using relative paths. So I will now publish that to file, stick it over top of the one that I previously created, replace it, I don't mind, double click. So it's playing, keeps playing, keeps playing, keeps playing, changes. So that's exactly what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to keep playing through all those steps, but just at the end to stop the one and play the other. So those are just a few of the SugarCube audio macros. If you Google SugarCube 2 macros, you'll be taken to this page, which has documentation for all of the many macros. There's lots of cool things related to like links. We're going to do more in the next video about programming, but audio, there's a whole bunch of different audio macros. And so you'll see you can play, pause, fade in, fade out. Like I said, those aren't working right now because of some bug. Change the volume, start at a particular point, loop, not loop. It's pretty great. So there's lots and lots of things you can do. So I would highly recommend that you come to this page to really advance your skills, to check out the full macro library for SugarCube, which is our story format. Okay, remember we're using Twine 2.1 and we're using the SugarCube story format. Okay, so that's it for images and for music. Go crazy.